Hey there, are you grieving the potential loss of a loved one or feeling overwhelmed with the loss of someone you care about? If so, you're in the right place. Lisa Hartung here, and this podcast is designed to guide you through topics surrounding death and dying. We'll dive into multifaceted aspects of grief, offering you a blend of personal stories, expert insights, and practical advice for your grief journey. May this be a safe space for you to learn, listen, and ask questions about your own life and loved ones. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Giving Grief Grace. I hope that you are having a fantastic day, and I am sending love and light your way. Last week, we talked about numbering our days and being really intentional about the time in which we have left on this earth. And so I took that to heart. We recently went to Maine to go visit my dad, see other family members, and one of my nieces was in her high school play. It's just such a gift, such a blessing to be able to see this next generation of world changers. And I am just so grateful for the relationships in my life. It brings me so much joy. And sometimes it's hard to, figure out and put the puzzle pieces together of like, how are we going to make this happen? And yeah, flying with a baby is always hard and life happens, right? And so I have made it a point to make sure that we go back to Maine and visit with family, visit with friends, because it's so life-giving to me. And I hope that others get inspired to do the same. It's never too late to spend time with family and be fully present. Or maybe it's a friend that you haven't seen in a long time. And boy, what a difference that makes in life. So fun. And if you can't be there in person, set up a Zoom call, a FaceTime, you could even just call them on the phone, text them, just tell someone that you're thinking of them and that you care about them. And I'm just feeling so grateful for this community. And thank you for showing up every week and for being such a guiding light. This week, we have such an incredible guest on the show. Her name is Michele Jackson. That is Michele with one L. And she is an incredible person because she's taken 3 decades of nursing experience and combined it with her expertise as an advanced grief recovery method specialist and an infinite possibilities trainer. She helps individuals heal hearts, transform their lives, and rediscover joy. So throughout her nursing career, she cared for children and veterans and trauma and surgical patients. And Dawn witnessed this profound mind-body connection and how it really impacted people's healing, right? This grief that they were carrying with them was manifesting in physical ways. So through her own journey of loss and renewal, ignited this mission. She wants to help guide others from merely surviving to truly thriving. So with compassion and empathy, Dawn supports her clients in cultivating wellness of mind, body, and spirit while empowering them to illuminate their inner light. In this conversation, it's just such a gift to walk through how Dawn introduces herself and meets with clients, and then this journey that they go on together to the end where they are just physically lighter. It's so fascinating. And I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation, and please share it with someone because grief shows up in all different ways in our lives. And I think that this episode could be one that can really help people. Dawn is also the best-selling author of Journey to Peace and Healing and Journey to Self-Discovery, 100 Days of Soulful Reflections. Her work has been featured in several international best-selling anthologies, and she's also been recognized for her wisdom and insight by being invited to teach as an expert instructor at the Inspired Living University. And she's also shared her voice on a number of podcasts. So without further ado, please welcome
Dawn Michele Jackson to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Giving Grief Grace. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm super excited to welcome officially to the podcast Dawn Michele Jackson. Thank you, Dawn. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here with you. And the fact that we connected and we're going to have this conversation, I'm really excited about it. So thank you for letting me join you today.
Yes, and thank you for the work that you do, Dawn. We were talking before we hit record of how it's so impactful to work with people who are walking through grief. And in an
Mhm.
online setting, you're able to reach people around the world. And it's such a unifier to be able to speak with people online and really cultivate community and connection. I think that you have such a fascinating story, and I would love for us to start out a little bit by you telling listeners how you got to where you are today. And now you're an advanced grief recovery method specialist and come with so much knowledge, both like clinical from the nursing experience and then from the grief side as well. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be.
I'd love to. Well, I have been a nurse for over 30 years, but I left nursing in 2022. That was after the pandemic. What I was noticing is that so many of my patients were suffering from physical health issues after something happened in their life that affected them emotionally. And
Mm,
they didn't have the tools that they needed to process those emotions. And so those emotions were showing up in the body as physical health issues. By this time, I was already a grief recovery method specialist, and I decided that I was burnt out from nursing, bedside nursing, and I
mm.
wanted to help people in a different way. So that's when I decided to leave and offer this full time to people to help them heal their hearts and find joy again.
Yeah.
But backtrack how I got to grief recovery is my childhood. I grew up with an alcoholic father and an alcoholic stepfather. I then found myself in an abusive relationship as a teenager, my first serious relationship. And I didn't know how to navigate that. And so when I got married to a different man, a very kind man, I brought all of this pain into that marriage. And I didn't know that at the time. Our marriage did not survive. And when my son was 3.5 years old, we ended up divorced. And at that time, I was very angry that my, husband had left and I was now a single mom. I didn't see my place in it. I wasn't taking ownership for my actions.
Mm.
But over time, I realized I was getting tired of living in that I'm a victim
Yeah.
mindset. I
Yeah.
didn't want to do it anymore. I'd been doing it for years. And so I started, doing workshops, reading self-help books, going to classes, and they all took the edge off a little bit. But I was still experiencing a great deal of pain. And amongst all this, my relationship with my dad was really rocky because, he was an alcoholic and I never could really count on that relationship in my life. So it was causing me a great deal of pain.
I bet.
I found myself, actually, my husband at this point, he signed us both up for this grief recovery method training to be a specialist to help other people. And I said to him, I'm like, I don't have any grief in my life because at that point, I equated grief with death. And I think a lot of people do. That's a misconception.
Mhm.
Grief is related to any loss, transition, or change in our lives that feels uncomfortable. It leads to grief, and it's normal. So when I started the training day one, within an hour, walls came tumbling down. Wow, I've experienced a lot of grief in my life from all these things that I'd gone through. And so as I started doing my own work, I realized that my life was changing in such a positive way. My relationships were healthier. My communication was different. I wasn't carrying anger around anymore. My self-worth grew. It just all around, every aspect of my life was better because I was healed. And I came to realize that every unhealed aspect of me affected my life
Mm.
in not a positive way. And so shortly after this, my dad got sick and then he ended up passing away. And so at that point, I'd already done some work around my relationship with my dad because it was a difficult relationship. It brought me a lot of pain. But then when he passed away, it was a whole nother layer of grief because now, all the hopes, dreams, and expectations I had for our relationship that never came to fruition in the past, they were never going to come into fruition because he was gone. And so, as I did this work on myself, I realized that this is something that I wanted to help other people with. And that's why I decided to, leave my nursing job and just focus on this work.
Like how inspiring, right? That you go into this workshop thinking, yeah, I'll humor my husband, I'll go.
Right.
And like, yeah, I don't have any grief. I'm totally all good here. And then within an hour, like that is so incredible, Dawn. And what was there like a something that kind of clicked for you that there was like, okay, we're in it. Was there like was it a saying? Was it a certain type of workshop or tool that you used or
I mean, there were many tools, but I think it was just hearing that grief is normal and natural. It is a reaction to any transition, change, loss in your life. And my life had been filled with so many transitions, so
Mhm.
much loss, not
Mhm.
related to death at that point, but just related to change. And for so many years of my life, I couldn't figure out why I was never happy. I mean, even after I got a divorce, I was able to keep our home. I still had the same nursing job. I could afford to do some things that I wanted to do. I had a great family. My ex-husband was wonderful. I mean, we're still friends, but I wasn't happy and I didn't know why. I thought there was something wrong with me. And so finally, when I went into this training and I listened to the trainer, I
Yeah.
realized that I haven't been happy because my heart has been just full of pain that I haven't known how to process it. So instead of processing it, I was just continuing to push it down, push it down, push it down, and try to move forward. But it's very hard to do that because it's like that shadow that's always lurking, waiting to jump out at you.
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room that no one
It
wants to
is.
talk about. And
Mhm.
so many people sweep grief under the rug and say, I'm fine. I'm fine.
They do. Oh, I have to talk to you about that word, fine. So, fine in our house is feelings inside not expressed.
I like that. It's
So
so
we can't,
true.
yeah, we can't use that word in our house because if we say fine, then like, okay, what are you not talking about? And
Mm,
it is
really?
really true because if
Yeah.
we're good, we say we're good,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
oftentimes we don't want to talk about things because we feel like if we do, it will make us feel better. Or we also believe that, maybe the person that's asking us how we are isn't someone that we can trust with our emotions, that they might
Mm,
minimize how we feel because that happens a lot in society. We don't realize it that we're doing that,
yeah.
but we all do, and we need to be gentle with ourselves. Um, but it's really important, like when someone is expressing how they feel, that we hold space for them and we don't compare like their grief to our grief or try and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't know if there is a fixing grief,
Right.
but being present is the key there.
Yeah, and so many of us just want to be heard.
Mm, hmm.
I mean, I think in life, when we listen, most of us are taught to listen to respond. And so pausing and listening to just listen can be very uncomfortable when you first do it.
Yeah.
But when you show up that way for someone and you hold space and you just listen, it allows them to speak from their heart, like those deep emotions that maybe they haven't shared with anyone else before. And they feel seen and heard.
And what a gift to be able to offer that to someone.
It is.
Like, oh my gosh. You went on to become an advanced grief recovery method specialist and you went through the training. And so I would love for you to walk us through, if someone is interested in this, because I think there are so many different grief tools, but this method seems really fascinating to me. And I love that it's not just grief in the sense of I lost someone and they died. It's a much wider grief and lots of different types of grief. Maybe you could walk us through why this special method is so unique and
Yeah.
worthwhile.
And I'll start with you and me both. We thought that grief maybe in the past was just related to death, and it's not. A divorce is a grieving event, losing a job. And then there's things like retirement.
Mm,
While that's a happy event, it also has a lot of grief. It's a loss of purpose.
yeah.
Having a child can be a grieving event because okay, we're very happy that we have this healthy child, but our life has just turned upside down.
Mm,
We've never navigated this before. So I always remind people that with grief, you can also have gratitude. It isn't one or the other always. We can have those conflicting feelings. And so, it's important to be gentle with ourselves. Moving is a grieving event. Being open to the fact that grief can be caused from anything, strain on a relationship. You have a fight with your spouse, that leads to grief, right? Because none of us want that tension with the
no.
person that, we're closest to in our home.
Mm-mm.
Um, So the grief recovery method is very different. It's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And I went to therapy for years after my divorce. And my therapy was I would just kind of talk about what was on my mind. And I talked about it over and over and over and over and over again, but I never
Like,
really felt any resolve. That's what a lot of grief programs are, not all of them. But how the grief recovery method is different is it's an action-based program. And it's evidence-based now because we've done research and stuff and we've had so much success with it. It's actual tools that we use. So John James, over 40 years ago, developed this. He was a Vietnam veteran and he'd lost his son,
mm,
um, his newborn son. And so he didn't know how to heal his heart. And veterans, they have that mentality of just keep pushing forward and be strong. But John found that that didn't help him. He was still grieving. He was still experiencing that pain. And so he thought to himself, well, I'm just going to figure out how I can help myself because he'd read so many books about grief, but they were all about someone's experience, what they were grieving, but not how they
like,
felt better, how they could change it, right?
yeah.
So the grief recovery method has all these different layers. I mean, we look at myths and beliefs that we've carried throughout our whole life
Mm,
surrounding how we navigate grief, right?
mm-hmm.
Because normally what has been modeled for us in our childhood is also how we move forward in life. So if like a grandparent died and our parents said, "Oh, well, just let us be. We're going to go in our room. We want to be by ourselves," then that causes us as children and adults to isolate as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because kids are looking at up to their parents and grieving how their parents grieve.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so important that we look at where we came from. People come to
Hmm.
me and they say, like, as an example, I just broke up with my partner and, I'm experiencing so much pain. And what they don't realize is their relationship with their partner has something to do with their relationships with their parents.
Mm,
Everything really goes back to family of origin. And so we need to look at some of those things. We need to look at those belief systems we formed. Need to look at how grief was handled in our childhood.
yeah.
We need to look at all the grief that we've experienced in our lives. And people say to me, I don't want to do that. That feels overwhelming. That feels
Mm,
scary. I think I'm going to feel worse. And, I always tell people, it doesn't feel good to look at some of these things, but if we don't look at them and if we don't feel those emotions, then we are never going to navigate through them and move forward. We have to look at them.
Yeah, you have to allow the emotion to flow through your body and
Right.
it's like unpacking a suitcase, right? That's been packed
Exactly.
for years.
Hmm. Yeah, because there's
Mm-hmm.
all these hopes, dreams, and expectations we have for relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't tell me one relationship that is perfectly fits your hopes, dreams, and expectations. It doesn't happen, right? And so
My girlfriend always says 80/20, 80%. If you do 80%, that's good.
there you go. So we need to look at those things because that's what keeps us stuck,
Yeah.
right?
No one's ever going to be the absolutely perfect match for someone else.
Right. And when we lose someone to death, like we
Mm,
still had plans. We wanted to celebrate our next birthday with them. We wanted to celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day with them. We
mm,
wanted to go on the trip to the beach, whatever it is, and we don't get that. And so
mhm.
it hurts our heart. And
Yeah.
those things that we wish would have been different, you
Mm,
know, we
mhm.
wish we wouldn't have had that argument on that day that we spent together, or
Yeah.
we wish, we would have shown up different or they would have shown up different. Those are the things that keep us stuck. And so
Mhm.
we look at all these and we process them and
Mm,
we move through them because if we don't, then we stay stuck in the pain. But what we want, and when we talk about completion, is, really navigating through those painful emotions so that we can get back to the love in that relationship, the good things.
yeah.
And
And
some
take the
people,
victimization out of it.
exactly. And some people will say, well, I'll never remember anything good. Like there are abusive relationships. Like, how do I ever heal from those?
Yeah.
Well, we have to forgive them, not to condone behavior, not to let somebody off the hook, not because we ever want a relationship with them again, but we have to get ourselves out of the prison that we're in because we're keeping ourselves there.
Mm,
And that is a hard one. And having been in an abusive relationship in the past, like that was one of the hardest relationships that I worked on. But I realized that I was carrying so much anger around from that relationship, and it was affecting my life in such negative ways. And so I needed to process all the emotions in that.
mm. It's so fascinating, Dawn, that you had said, yes, I grew up in this, I had an alcoholic father, I had an abusive high school boyfriend, and then I got into a marriage and that was seemingly lovely, but ended. And then realizing, okay, I have the power to change how I'm telling the story of these past events.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very empowering. And in fact, today, I mean, as you know, I've written two books and I talk about it in one of my books is that everything that's happened to me, I now view as a gift because it
Mm,
led me to where I am today. It
mm,
helped me grow. Like my husband leaving me, if he would have never left me and said, I want a divorce, I would have never healed from the stuff that happened to me before we got together. I just wouldn't have because I didn't know there was a problem. And at the time when I got a divorce, I started going to a therapist and he said, who are you, Dawn? And he said, well, I'm a nurse and I'm a mom and I'm a wife. And he's like, no, no, no. Like, who are you? And I didn't know because all I was doing is living in those roles. I didn't
mm.
allow myself to truly find who I was because it was covered up by so much pain from events of the past.
Yeah. And so by going through the grief recovery method, you're kind of unpacking these layers, like shedding these layers
Right.
and finding out who the true Dawn is.
Hmm. Exactly.
Wow. And then once you've done that, is that when you talk about, emotional completion, is that when you've kind of unzipped the layers or, revealed them and processed them? Sometimes we say name it to tame it because feelings they can be all buzzing up in our head. And unless we
Yes.
like call them out and say, okay, actually, I think I'm feeling this because is the emotional completion where, okay, I've now identified the unsavory, if you will, parts of my past. And now I'm ready. I'm at identifying what brings me joy and I'm ready to move forward. Or how does that
Yeah.
look for clients?
Well, so here's the thing. So someone comes to me and then, oh, okay, my partner and I just broke up. And they think that that's the only grief they've experienced in their life. And they think that when they look at that and they navigate it, process it, that they're done. But what
And they're like, no.
becomes uncovered is, things with mom and things with dad and things with past relationships and ways our hearts were hurt. So here's a great example. When we meet our first love of our life, most of us are teenagers. It's like, oh, this is great. We put our whole heart into that relationship, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, 99.9% of people get hurt because most of us aren't with the person that we first met as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so once we get hurt, our heart closes a little bit. So then we meet somebody new and we enter into that relationship. Our heart isn't as open. We get hurt again, it closes more of our heart.
Oh.
So every time we show up in a new relationship, it's smaller and smaller and smaller. And so until we start unpacking some of that pain, all that stuff shows up in our relationships. It's why people react to their partners and sometimes don't know why, because it's bringing up something from past relationships, a past hurt. And so
Mhm.
when our new partner acts a certain way, we associate it with pain from something in our past.
That we might not know that we're
Right.
associating it with.
Exactly. So, as a good example, I was in an abusive relationship. So, it used to be like my physical safety was always an issue for me. Like,
Yeah.
if someone would raise their voice, I'd like react right away. And it wasn't until I did all this work that I realized, okay, I'm safe. That was then. This is now. This is a different individual. Just because someone raises their voice doesn't mean that they're going to harm me. They might just be excited about something, or they might be angry, but it has nothing to do with me. And
Hmm.
so that's what I mean, how we can easily react to something versus respond because we have these unhealed parts of our heart.
So fascinating and so like down true to the core. And like thinking about how your heart closes a little bit and then closes a little bit. And so this is an invitation to reopen and know that, you can crack open the nut and see this beautiful shining light that can continue to bring joy to you once you've gone through
Absolutely.
this.
And the sad thing is that because most of us aren't taught in childhood emotional first aid, we're taught physical. We
Yeah.
know what to do if somebody falls and they skin their knee or, you know, clean your wound, put a band-aid on, that kind of thing. But most of us aren't taught emotional first aid. Many times, if we have a bad day, our parents say, oh, let's go get an ice cream or let's go get a cookie. Or if we lose our dog or if our dog dies, well, we'll get another one, replace the
Mm,
loss. So those are the ways we learn to navigate loss. And
yeah.
so as an adult, we start to feel pain from different experiences that are losses in our life, and we don't know what to do. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel good. And so we try to numb ourselves. So that's where alcohol use, drug use, overuse of social media, overeating, all those kind of things come up because we want a way to forget our pain. And the problem is those are all temporary. We call them STIRBs, short-term energy relieving behaviors.
Okay.
Yeah, because they
Short-term
work
energy releasing.
short-term.
Yeah. Right. They give you that little drop of dopamine and then
Yeah.
it's over.
I
Yep.
mean, think about the pandemic. Almost every industry was losing money, not the alcohol industry,
Hmm.
because we didn't know, were we going to survive another week? Was our family? I mean, it was a very scary time. And so people drank more because they didn't want to think about what was going on in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
It's
when
that
we don't,
escapism.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so that's what we do if we don't have other tools to navigate difficult periods in our life.
Yeah, and when you lose a loved one, when there's significant loss, that resorting to that STIRB, I like that
Mhm.
terminology, right? That short term um, fix is it's it's not really a fix.
No,
With grief, it's you can't go around, you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it. You have to move through it.
right. You can
And
try to hide. And most of the STIRBs that I talk about, there's so many more. I just mentioned a few.
yeah.
Um, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something we all do. And most of those things in moderation are fine. It's when we use them continually to numb ourselves. Like the day my
Mhm.
dad died, my aunts and I and my significant other, like we got a few bottles of wine, chocolate, like, we wanted to numb ourselves. And I was a grief recovery method specialist, but I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
My
it's very
dad just died.
intentional.
Yeah, I'm doing this today. This isn't what I'm going to do tomorrow and for the weeks following. This is just what I need to do right this moment.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's becomes very dangerous when that is our coping mechanism, those type of things. And keeping busy is a big one too. With women in the workforce and having big careers these days, along with men, it's the workaholics. Well, I'm just going to keep busy and I'm going to work so much and I won't be home till 10 o'clock. I'm going to miss dinner because I'm trying to avoid something in my life that I don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And that breaks up families, sadly.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's so many different layers to unpack with that type of, workaholism and overcompensation in one area of your life, thinking about the life wheel and the
Mm.
different elements. And it's always good to do kind of a life review of what do I need to work on? But when you're in grief, you're in survival mode
Yes,
and trying to figure
absolutely.
out, okay, my life as it was is no longer. So what does the future look like?
Mhm.
So when people come to you, Dawn, are they are they at all different stages of grief?
Mhm. Oh, well, I actually want to talk about the stages. I love that you brought that up. So, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross developed stages of grief, which everybody talks about, but
Yeah.
most people don't realize she developed those stages of grief for somebody that was dying,
Mm,
not for the griever that's left. And so people get stuck because they're like, well, I was in this stage and now I'm back in this one, and they get really hard on themselves, right? They're beating
yeah.
themselves up because they feel like they're not making progress, but she didn't develop those for someone that was the griever. She developed those for the person that was preparing for their life to end.
Mm,
And so I love to tell people that so they can be gentle with themselves because there are no stages of what you're going to go through. Whatever you go through is normal for you, and it's going to be different for you than it is for me. And one thing you and I had talked about that I want to mention, because I just thought about it before we started recording, is how different our grief is. Like you
hmm
and I could have been sisters, and our mom died, but I don't know how you feel, and you don't know how I feel because we both have unique relationships with mom.
hmm
We're both individual.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to remember that when we're talking to people is to understand that we don't know how they feel. We know how we felt when we lost that individual or when we went through divorce or lost our job, but we don't know how they feel.
Yeah. And I think I was saying, Don, like I feel terrible because I'm always like, I know how you feel. I'm like, I can synth or empathize with you because I understand what you're going through. But maybe what's a better reframe of that so that it's more open?
I remember how I felt when I went through that,
Okay.
and I didn't feel good. So I can't imagine how you're feeling. Yeah.
I
Because
can't.
that doesn't minimize somebody's experience, and that lets them know that you realize that what they're going through, is unique to them.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Their feelings are unique. And
Yeah.
then it feels, people will feel like more open for a conversation, like to share more.
Mm-hmm.
I always ask people, how can I support you?
Yeah. And asking questions, bringing that out. It's so fascinating about the different stages of grief because you're so right. We're like, okay, well, I'm in the anger phase right now. I'm in the acceptance phase. I never thought of it as someone who is preparing for their final chapter, not someone who is continuing on after that final chapter, after another loved one's chapter had ended. So,
Yeah, it gives us a little bit more grace for
mm,
ourselves. Like
yeah. Hence
instead of
giving grief grace.
I should be in this stage. And I like to bring this up too, is so many people say, oh, well, you'll feel better in time. But the
Mm.
fact of the matter is time does nothing. So think about this. You're driving along and you get a flat tire. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you just sit there for hours and days, is your tire ever going to reinflate? The chance is very unlikely. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to call AAA or find someone to help you reinflate that tire. And the same thing goes for grief. It's what we do in time that helps us heal. It's not just that time passes. It's the
Mm.
actions we take in that time.
So it's the action taking.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for taking the action?
I always recommend people choose to be emotionally honest, and that is very hard for many people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's scary. People have said to me, I think that if I feel my emotions, they're going to kill me.
Mm. Oh.
Because we get so scared of what's going to happen if we allow ourselves to feel, but we need to allow ourselves to feel to process emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
finding that person or people that we can trust, that are a safe space,
Yeah.
that will just hold that space and they'll listen without needing to fix is really important. That's one of the most important things that we can do is reaching out, asking for help, choosing to be emotionally honest versus stuffing down our emotions.
Mm. Choosing to be emotionally honest. Even when you said that, I was like, ooh, like, oh,
Right?
it's a
Yeah,
little,
because
yeah.
like we talked about, when people ask, well, how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm. Feelings inside, not
Not
expressed.
expressed. Yeah.
I love that saying.
Because all of us have experiences, I think, of some time in our life where somebody asked us how we were. And
Yeah.
maybe we told them, oh, I'm just having a really bad day. And it's like eyes glazed over, like they didn't want to hear it. Right. And
Yeah.
so we learned from that to not talk about how we're feeling, to just pretend. But the problem with that is it affects us mentally, emotionally, physically. It affects our relationships. It's hard to move forward in life and really have a healthy life in all aspects if we're not being honest with what's really going on inside.
Mm-hmm. As you're working with someone in this grief recovery method,
Hmm.
what's the recovery part? So the recovery is we're peeling off these layers, speaking about, right? It's not, we're taking action. Does that come in the form of speaking about and doing things or
There's a lot of writing that we do.
mm-hmm.
In the grief recovery method, I meet with people every week. I keep in really close contact with all
Yeah.
of my clients. There's some reading, there's some writing, and then we spend time just talking about things. And, there's forgiveness pieces that we need to do. We need to look at all aspects of the relationship where we need to take ownership because no relationship is one-sided. Like there's
So
things that
true.
all of us do that we wish would have done differently, that maybe we feel a little ashamed of. And so we need to talk about those. We need to get those out, as well as the things that other people have done that have harmed us. And then the positive things, remembering those positive things. Like even if a relationship, went really sour and ended very badly, there was a reason it started. So
Yeah.
think you back to that because we often put our relationships like we demonize them.
Like that was a bad, but
Mhm.
from what you're saying is they're all learning experiences.
Yes.
And there's a
Yes,
takeaway, there's a gem of wisdom there that you now have that you didn't have
exactly.
before.
Yeah, and we need to find that. That's important because otherwise we're left with, I was a victim, I
Mm,
was harmed, and then also beating ourselves up. Like, why did I put myself in that situation? Like, I had that for years. Like, why did I stay in an abusive relationship? Like, shame on me. Like, I knew better. I was highly educated. Like, how could I do that? And so it's important to look at all of that stuff to be able to move past it and let go of that so that we can live the life that we deserve to live and we want to live,
yeah.
thriving instead of surviving.
Yeah. And so I love thinking about that. And I'd love to get your perspective of how, when you start working with someone who you talked about that physical manifestation of how physical, social, emotional, they're all tied together. And
Yep.
so you can almost see the grief or the pain that they are shouldering,
Mhm.
essentially, when you first start working with them. And so over time, you talk about unlocking joy and learning how to live again. And I talk a lot about, when you're going through the loss of a loved one, you feel like I'm never going to be happy and I'm never going to feel
Right.
joy again. But as you're taking action, so it's not time, as you said, it's taking action on moving through, naming your feelings and moving through them. But would love to hear kind of as you've gone through the journey with someone, what happens on the other side?
Well, it's really interesting. I love it because when I work with people and, like I'm online with them, like about the fourth session, they look different to me. And I know what it is, but it's like, did you do something different with your hair? No. Did you put more makeup on? No. They're lighter because people carry all of this grief and they don't talk about it,
Yeah.
you know, and they're beating themselves up. They think that there's no hope. And
Mm,
so when they start letting go of that, when they start talking, when they start releasing it, they visually look different. And, some examples, like I've worked with somebody who had extreme anxiety, didn't want to go out of the house, didn't want to, even go to the store. And after working together, like she reported to me, like, I feel completely different. I don't have that anxiety I used to have. And, another person had a really contentious relationship with her mom. And right after we finished working together, it was like Mother's Day. And I talked to her after she met with her mom and I said, "How was it?" And she's like, "Oh, it was okay." Where before it was always a very stressful event to spend time with mom. But
mm-hmm.
because she did the work, she showed up differently, right?
Yeah.
People often want others to change, but we
Mm-hmm.
can't make anybody else change. The only change that we have control over is ourselves. And when we change what's going on inside of us, our relationships shift automatically.
Mm. I'm automatically thinking of Mel Robbins' book, Let Them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let them
Love it.
be them and let me be me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really empowering to think, we have control over ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose how we're going to show up. We get to choose if we're going to heal.
Mm.
We can't control anybody else, but that's okay because how we show up affects the world. It creates a ripple effect. And that's why I do the work that I do. If it changes one person's life, then it changes hundreds of people's lives, thousands.
Yeah. There's that ripple effect. And I'm just thinking of this woman who did not want to leave her house, and now she's going to the store. That just unlocks so much potential in someone.
Yes, it does. And, I've seen some of my clients just do amazing things since we've worked together, things that they were too afraid to do previously.
Yeah, that
Because
fear just holds us back.
yeah, it keeps us playing small.
Mm,
It keeps us from our dreams. It keeps us living a life that we weren't meant for. And
mm,
that's what I've realized doing my own healing is,
yeah.
I never wanted to be noticed. I never wanted to be heard. But that wasn't reality. Reality was I was hurting. I didn't know how to get out of that space.
Yeah. You didn't know how to heal the pain.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
And, I kept hearing, well, it just takes time. Well, I always ask people, has something happened in the last 5 years of your life that still is causing you pain? Everybody raises their hand. And then I go to 10, 15, and 20 years, and I still have people raising their hand. And I say, if time healed, wouldn't 20 years be enough?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real eye-opening question,
Yeah.
right? Because it isn't time. It's the action in time. I know people who've been divorced for 40 years and are still so angry
Oh,
at their ex-spouse. And the sad thing is they're carrying that over to their children and their grandchildren because they haven't healed.
yeah. And it's that weight that they carry with them that if
Mhm.
they could just unpack that and
Right,
throw it overboard, let it sink to the bottom of the ocean
right.
and like
Yeah,
allow yourself
exactly.
to float, right?
And
And
don't get me wrong, when we do the healing, it's not that we don't feel sadness anymore.
yeah,
We can still feel sadness, but we don't
yeah.
have to experience that deep pain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, oh, it's Mother's Day and I miss my mom today.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can get through the day and I can remember all the happy Mother's Days I experienced with her.
Yeah, and you had said this earlier is, the opposite side of grief is gratitude. And
Hmm.
so looking to gratitude instead of the victimization, right? It's the
Exactly.
changing the way in which we that inner voice is speaking to us
Mhm.
and how we're thinking about them. This has just been such a fascinating conversation, Dawn.
And great. I've loved it.
Like the grief recovery method sounds like it's so life-changing. And what I like about it is it's not just about one type of grief, and it's
No,
also not about one episode of grief, right? These are
no.
layers. These are lifelong changes that have happened that we are now carrying with us,
Hmm.
maybe unintentionally or unknowingly, and they affect how we act today.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing I love about the grief recovery method that's different from like therapy, counseling is, once you learn this, you can use it for the rest of your life and you don't have to come back and see me.
Mm.
Can, I'm always here. My clients I keep in touch with forever. I just reach out, how are you doing? Because you form a really deep connection working with people through some of these things. But you don't have to because you have these tools to navigate stuff from the past, the present, or the future. And so that's beautiful in my eyes because it doesn't keep people dependent.
Yeah. What a gift you're giving to
Thank you.
people and, having experienced deep grief and thinking about the tools that you work with and how you navigate grief and moving through taking action is just such a gift. So thank you, Dawn, for all that you do and for the work that you continue to help others with. I would love for, if listeners are like, "Oh my gosh, I need to work with Dawn Michele Jackson." How can they find you?
So my website is Dawn Michele Jackson. It has one L. You can also find me on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. If you get on my website, you can book a discovery call with me. I love to have conversations with people. It's a no pressure call, but especially in today's world where everything is turning into technology and AI, and we need to feel connection. We need to feel a human heart,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Listening. And so,
Yeah,
if anyone's struggling and just kind of doesn't know where to move forward, schedule a call with me. Let's just chat.
yeah. And it's sometimes just so helpful to have that conversation to verbally process
Right.
or at least share with one other person, this is what I'm going through.
Because oftentimes we feel alone. And that's
Mhm.
what I don't want people to do is to feel alone. It's
Yeah.
easy to feel that way in our world right now.
Mm-hmm. So reach out to Dawn. You guys can have a chat, conversation, and think about on the other side all of the joy. Like it's almost like getting a new lease on life.
It is. And I'll share this story with you. So I just got married in March. So my
Congrats.
partner that signed me up for the grief recovery method training, we
Uh-huh.
just got married. We've been together for quite a few years. But him and I both came into this relationship with baggage. I mean, we
Mm.
all do, right?
Yeah.
And when we learned the grief recovery method, we both started doing our own healing, and it changed our relationship in so many ways.
Wow.
And so now, I mean, I can very happily report that we got married because we have done all this healing work and we don't feel like we're carrying a bunch of baggage into our relationship. And it's healthy. We know how to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
we know how to navigate hard times. And so, my life is filled with joy, where before I didn't quite understand why it wasn't, because outwardly it looked very happy, but
Mm-hmm.
inside I didn't feel that way. Now I do. I have so much gratitude for where I am in life. So there is hope. And I always like to share with people, just because your story has been filled with pain in the past, that is just one or more chapters. That doesn't make up your whole book, your whole story,
Mm-hmm.
right? The end of your story, the rest of your story can be filled with joy. But let's
Yeah.
figure out how to get you to that place.
Yeah. Let's rewrite it.
Yeah,
Like, we
exactly.
can rip those pages out and like,
Yeah, we can learn from them. We
yeah.
can heal, and then we can experience joy. Everybody deserves that.
Mm-hmm. And how cool, Dawn. Like you are walking the walk and talking the talk. And what a success story. Congratulations.
Oh,
And
thank
I'm
you.
I'm thinking about you both and how deep your conversation and your connection must be, above and beyond a normal one that hadn't gone through the grief recovery method because you have these tools. These tools can ripple into other aspects of your life and they just make your life all around more fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dawn. What a gift to be able to chat
Well,
today. And I am so excited for listeners to connect with you and to start living more joyful lives and go through the trials and tribulations because there is light on the other side.
there
So,
definitely is light on the other
yeah,
side. Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been a wonderful conversation today.
right. Thank you. Well, have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. It would be such a gift if you could share this episode with someone and brighten their day. You never know what will happen. Subscribe to get a weekly dose of positivity, and while you're at it, please leave a review. May you be kind to yourself in the week ahead and give yourself grace. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.